Welcome to Ashes and Roses, the podcast.
A millennial review of entrepreneurship.
We're your hosts. I'm Junie.
And I'm Ashley. We'll be sharing with you an honest review of our trials and triumphs in business.
The Ashes and the Roses.
On season 2, we'll be inviting other entrepreneurs to share their journey as well.
Join us every Wednesday on Apple, Spotify, and Google Podcasts.
And as always, we'll be keeping it real,
raw, and revolutionary. All right. Welcome to another episode of Ashes and Roses.
Ashes and Roses, baby. Welcome back, guys.
Welcome back. It is season 2.
Yes.
And season 2, it's really great because this season we're sponsored. We got to sponsor this season.
Yes. Oh, yeah. So, first things first, got to respect the man who feeds us. No.
Or the woman.
The woman who feeds us.
The women's. So this episode is sponsored by Sapphire Health and Wellness. Sapphire Health and Wellness specializes in memory care in Westerville with a Sapphire House where we provide personal care, help with ambulations, memory care. We provide A to Z for all adults and seniors affected by Alzheimer's and dementia. We've been around for 3 years, and
whoop,
we
whoop.
are working and creating towards changing the standard of care for seniors. So we're excited, and we're so happy to have Sapphire Health and Wellness sponsor this episode.
Yes. All right, and today, Junie, what is our topic? What are we talking about?
Our topic, well, if you've been following along, season 2 is Challenge the Industry. # Challenge the Industry. So we're challenging industries that are, or corporations. We're challenging corporations that have gone unchecked. And then highlighting entrepreneurs who also work in the space or have background in the space for each specific industry that we're talking about. So today's episode, we're challenging the education industry.
Okay, major.
Yes,
major
industry. So super excited to have a guest on with us. I'm going to let my co-host introduce
So
you.
today we're so lucky to have one of our closest friends, one of our biggest supporters, Gabby, on our show today. Gabriella Cajuste. Okay. Gabby is a licensed educator. She's been working in the public education for the last 10 years. She was a program manager for a major nonprofit. She is a long life volunteer. As long as I've known Gabby, she's been the one volunteering and dragging us with her. So if it wasn't for a friend like Gabby, I probably wouldn't volunteer as much as I do. But so lifelong volunteer. She's actually a returned Peace Corps Jamaica volunteer. Yes. And I hope you share a little bit about that. Yeah. She's a dope spoken word poet. Okay, so if you haven't already got her album, she has The Spirit Yearns to Move out on Apple,
Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, wherever music is streaming, it's available. Gab of Gaia.
Yes.
GABOFGAIA. Spaces in between.
Okay. Get that right. Rewind. You got rewind if you have to.
Right. Gab, GAB of OF, Gaia, GAIA.
That was the rewind.
That was the rewind. And if we have the skills, this early on into our transition to YouTube, we will hopefully have
We'll wind it back for them.
You didn't like that sound effect? I thought I did it for you.
No, I think it worked. Oh, you're gonna do the sound. You're gonna add the sound effect.
We already added the sound effect.
Jimmy's like, I don't know about that.
That's hilarious.
Okay, so grab that out. Go ahead and grab that album. Go ahead and download it. Okay. She is currently now, more recently, she's a Mama Glow doula in training. So Gabby's gonna be out here helping out with births and postpartum. Okay, she'll be providing support
Yes.
And I hope you go into a little bit into
support, education, advocacy.
Yes. I'm excited. I feel like you're the right person for that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
She's also a brand new entrepreneur. Welcome to the life of entrepreneurship. Okay.
This is an exciting conversation.
It's a roller coaster ride. So this is actually, I think, your first interview as an entrepreneur. So remember the little people. Remember Ashes and Roses. Okay.
And remember me, shoot.
So, like I said, one of our biggest supporters since we, opened up our business. You were there, open house. Like, you've been there every time. You've reminded us to celebrate multiple occasions. You've reminded us to celebrate our accomplishments in business. You're an amazing friend. We're lucky to have you here. I can't wait to discuss this interesting topic.
Yes. Oh, I love that introduction.
Yes, that was great. That was a great intro. I'm happy to have you here, Gabs.
Yes.
Be here. Thank you, ladies.
But before we get started, we always enter with a thought of the day.
Yes. So you could you let us know what makes you comfortable. Do you want us to start with the thought of the day, or would you like to share yours first?
I can share because you know what?
Yes.
A word just came into my mind immediately.
Okay.
Gratitude.
Oh, yes.
I feel it. I feel so grateful. Like it's like that word has been sticking, and we do our gratitude daily, and I feel it. I'm very grateful. Grateful for you too. Grateful for a lot of things. Gratitude.
Awesome.
That was nice.
Thank you for sharing. You know what? I recently, thankfully, because we've been doing it together and having like a support, been doing gratitude, and I definitely see the difference in myself. I don't even know if that's I was talking to you about, having a little bit more energy. That could be going towards my energy. Like, it's just, yes, gratitude is everything.
Yeah, I feel like, for me, I think maybe I just feel a little lighter. It's just like, okay, like whatever happens, And I've just been like, okay, universe, God, spirit, I accept. That's what you want.
Okay.
And it actually goes into it. This actually goes into a little bit my thought of the day, as far as gratitude goes, because I was telling Junie the other day that on another podcast I had mentioned I was and this is where it starts to get radical. I was mentioning revolutionary. Oh, radical should be another word that we add to that. No, but so I mentioned how I was kind of holding on to this kind of upset because initially when we started our business we could tell that white people weren't taking us seriously, or they would choose they would choose white companies over us, and we would feel some type of way about it. And then I realized I'm not really being grateful to literally the majority of the clientele, so it's it just really depends on what lens you're looking from. If I was looking from a place of gratitude, I would say I'm thankful for those that did trust us and that did look past, what they're actually conditioned to look at us I recently read this book that I'm sharing with everybody, The 4 Agreements. Actually, let me give you the name because I got his name because I need y'all to read this book. It's a life-changing book.
Don Miguel
Ruiz.
Yeah.
Yes. You read it?
Mm-hmm. It is great.
I wish she did.
I know, right? Of course. What book haven't you read, Gabby? No. No, but yeah, that book is life-changing. I mean, it's on Audible, 2 hours. Change your life in 2 hours, literally.
Yeah. And I think, so is that...
Well, the point that I was trying to finish off was, I mean, that's kind of where he, he was saying, we're conditioned to feel the way that we feel about ourselves and to feel the way that we feel about each other, So when you really look at it that way, it's it's not our fault, and it's not, I guess, their fault either, because they were really conditioned and grew up to feel or, to have some of these, I don't know, these ideas about us in their head, that didn't come from them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess, I guess our thought of the days are just similar because lately I've just been working on just not taking things personal. So with what you were saying about the clients and things like that, it's just like, you know, no one is doing anything because of you, right? It's always because of somebody else. So, or it's always because of what they feel in themselves. And then it's just an outward portrayal of what they're already feeling inside, you know? Yeah. So I've just been like, not taking things personal. If like something doesn't go my way, I'm just like, all right, well, I guess, you know, that's cool. You know, that's just been my response. Like, okay, that's okay.
Girl, I be thinking like it hasn't gone my way yet.
Right.
Just not now.
Like,
maybe later, maybe in a cooler time. Like, you know what I mean?
I just feel like, you know, it's going to come back.
Exactly.
Like I'm not going to fight you to prove, like you know, you see, and you know, and you be back.
You guys have some great reframes. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, that was
that was a good thought of the day session.
That was
wow.
a good thought of the day.
That was actually kind of short, though.
I hope everyone could, you know, heard me in that first part because I
had her whole mic off.
You're like, what is she saying?
No, I was like, why can I barely hear her? Okay, well.
Yeah. But anyway, so that was a great thought of the day. In today's episode, we're challenging the education industry. In today's episode, we titled it #Education minus Equality.
Ooh, okay. Yeah. Coming for them, just in
Education
the title.
Minus equality. But before we get into that, you know, we always have, I know you're an avid listener. This is usually Ashley's jewels. Ashley's analogies and Junie's jewels. This is why I don't do the structure, the announcements and things.
You're doing good though.
But so it's usually it's a co-host segment, and since you are our featured co-host for today, we would like you to go ahead and take the floor. Let us know. Share with us something. Who are you? Tell us about you. Tell us anything that you would want us to know, and anything that you would want our audience to walk away with having learned about you.
Well, first off, I'm a human.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Say that. Say that.
I am a human.
You're not AI.
Something I would want the audience to walk away with about me is that I'm a human, and I love just like everyone else. I have flaws just like everyone else, and I'm constantly learning and growing and navigating and evolving to become the person that I'm meant to be.
Yes.
And as the story unfolds, it unfolds in a way where I'm really passionate about education. And what I do is help educate people and children and empower them. Because that's really what's key. That's like the key word for me, empower. Because with that conditioning that we were talking about before, a lot of that conditioning is to take our power away from us. To think that we need something else other than ourselves to make our lives, to live our best life. And we don't. We just need to know that we can do it.
So I'm gonna call this segment "Gift of Gab." What do you think?
Oh yes. Hey. Okay. Do you need a sound effect? Okay. Should I give her my sound effect or what? Or give her a different one? What if I give her one on like the Gift of Gab? Sorry, it was random.
That was random.
It was.
I didn't know what you were to put. You guys just put me on the spot.
You offered it. You offered it up.
It's a whole segment.
We tried.
Yes, Gift of Gab.
That means she'll be back, folks.
Yep. You'll be back. Okay, so what does education minus equality mean to you?
It means we got more work to do.
More work to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
We know that we have an unequal system, and we know that our system is unequitable. You know, and that we have schools that do not have the same access to resources. And by resources, I don't mean just books and supplies, which that is a serious situation, but also like the buildings and quality educators and quality administrators. And,
wow.
So we know that there are some struggles with our schools and how we do schooling. Mm-hmm. We know that there are issues with our funding, which is a big issue with all of the industries in our government, in our country, the United States. Mm-hmm. So when I think of education minus equality, I think I know this. I went through the public school system, mm-hmm. And I went through different schools too. I was a student who struggled a lot in my early years, and that's partly at the root of why I'm so passionate about it, because I was a student in the classroom who they wanted to put me on medication. Oh. I got kicked out. But my mom stayed very firm with, no, we're not putting her on any medication.
Mom is
we're gonna figure this out. And it was exactly, she's lit. Shout out to my mama.
She the one. She the one.
And she stuck the course. And then as things evolved in our lives, I ended up encountering a teacher who really, believed in me. And I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. Mm-hmm. Whereas before it was a lot of I can'ts. Mm-hmm. And that's not, and that's to show too that although this system is unequal and unequitable, there are a lot of people, a lot of teachers, even though I said all those things about those persons who aren't doing their best job, mm-hmm. there are a lot of people who are, though, at the same mm-hmm. time. Mm-hmm. So there's always two sides to every coin. We're always oftentimes working in those dualities. But it makes their work even harder. There's a lot of pressure in the education system, mm-hmm. About outcomes and assessments and testing and this and that. And even how we look at school and education, when I'm talking to you guys about education now, if you notice, I'm mostly talking about it in one format mm-hmm. and one look. Mm-hmm. How we think about education can be expanded much broader. Yeah.
So I feel like I've dibbled and dabbled mm-hmm. in education, like at different parts of my life. So I can see like trends in the whole thing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you see it in other industries as well. Like, there's
the thing is when you say that there are good people within the industries, there are, but mm-hmm. those good people like literally have to fight to get their message heard, mm-hmm. and sometimes they lose their job in the process. I mean, mm-hmm.
And the structure is not really there for them to be supported or feel supported, not just at the school level, but at the district level, mm-hmm. and then at the state level, and then at the federal level. Mm-hmm. So it's not just like, oh, my school is so hard on me, but it's just like, there's just so many restrictions when it comes to education and just the laws around it that it doesn't take into account the human aspect of it. Mm-hmm. Like every kid is different. Every kid has different life circumstances that, as a result of these life circumstances, you're seeing a particular outcome in school, but it's not isolated from,
mm-hmm. Everything is connected.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is connected.
Absolutely.
And we see that in our education system, and we see it in our health
mm-hmm.
system. We see it in every industry. So it's
the corporation. It's the corporation
of
education.
And it's very intentional.
Yeah.
Because you have to go back and look at the history and why did we set up our education system this way? Mm-hmm. Why we have tons of research, tons of books. It's 2020. There have been people talking about education and these issues for a long time now. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But a lot of those works have been so suppressed. But now we're living in a day and age where information is so readily available that so many people are tapping into those sources. but our schools are really where most of that conditioning occurs. Think about it. Your child is in school for the majority of the day. You only see your child when they return. And I don't know about you guys, but I know I didn't see my mom until like she got off of work, which was like late at night. So by then I was ready to go to sleep, you know, and then on the weekends. So the space where your child is spending the most time is a space that you really want to be thinking about and real intentional about.
Right, because they're literally programming and brainwashing. And I mean, because think about it.
Programming, because there's nothing there yet. They're putting in the information.
Programming.
Yeah.
But children are constantly being programmed from birth.
Yeah.
To come out, you know, into life, into this new experience, even before birth.
Yeah.
Everything that happens in our body, like the woman's body is honestly phenomenal.
The bomb.
Okay.
The bomb.
This is a machine right here.
Yeah.
So many things have to work, just the human body to
Just
create
amazing
life.
Yes.
You know? So even from then there's that programming from what the mother is experiencing while carrying the child, you know, all of those, like, we need to go all the way back. And that's part of why I'm getting into the doula work is we really need to be intentional with how we even start our life, you know?
Before you dive deep into that, because I do want to ask you the question, since you're talking about your doula work, how are you tying in like the education with your entrepreneurship?
It's kind of just goes seamless, to be honest, because a birth and postpartum doula or full spectrum doula, or honestly, there's so many different types of doula. The role of a doula is to serve their client, is to be a resource, to be a support, to educate, to advocate, and to empower the person. Like, that's what it is. You're as a doula, I don't do anything medical. I'm here to support. I'm not delivering the child. I am guiding the birthing person in their process. So throughout that, I am sharing whatever resources, answering any questions, just being a supporter for that person, another member of the community. If we go back to our African, our Haitian roots, it's community. Yeah. You know, that's what we need. And that's what we need in education. Education industry, when we look at it, we're so focused on the teachers, the administrators, this and that. But we see that there is a disconnect between our parents and what's happening in school. Yeah. The education industry and the rest of these industries, to be honest, all function. You need the community. Wow. And that's what's missing.
That's literally the solution for our community, for our industry. Is community. Go back to the community.
It's the solution for everything. Community. Yeah. We're so caught up on individuality, which is important. Yeah. We want to be aware of ourselves and who we are. But once you know who you are, it's your responsibility, your civic duty to go back and give your gifts to your community.
You realize that self-care is community care. When you're taking care of people around you, you are taking care of yourself.
And not only that, the only way that you can, like, no one can go out and like change the world, right? But if you change how you show up in the world, then that creates a ripple effect. So if we're all doing that, then
wow, that's amazing. You drop in knowledge in this segment, man.
Giving gifts.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm trying.
So what else are you doing to tie your background in education and your entrepreneurship? Any other ventures or ideas, or like, what do you think that you're bringing into this education like industry that's gonna change?
Yeah,
I think I bring a unique perspective because, like I said, I am a product. Not only am I a product of the public school system, but I've also had varying experiences with it. But I taught in it. And then I also went and taught in another country. So not only do I have experience here in the U.S., but I also have experience in Jamaica with their education system. And I've also done a lot of work in looking at other education systems across the globe. So I think I have an interesting perspective with that. And all of those things tie to community as well, as rooted in community. Wow. You know, when I was in Jamaica, I really loved my experience. The community that I was in was a small rural community. They didn't have a lot of funds, but they had support for each other. You know, there are churches all throughout the community, whether you are practicing or not, but there is a lot of power in that, you know, a lot of support when things happen. Who do you go to? You know what I mean? And the way they did community in the community that I lived in Manchester, in the Manchester parish, I loved, you know? And even though they didn't have a whole lot the same resources that we do here in the States, it was really honestly humbling and disappointing when I first got there, because it was really disappointing with the U.S. education, because here we are, a country with so much access to resources and funds, and we have so many, like there were so many correlations that I saw.
Oh, wow.
Like just so many like of those disconnects that I saw in the classroom that I was like, well, this is interesting.
It's not that different.
It's not that different.
Wow.
You know? And I mean, there are definitely some differences for sure. I would definitely say with like respect, that's different, because also community. You know, the parents know their teachers. They know, you know, everybody know, like, you know.
So other people are keeping them accountable.
Exactly. And those things are also changing, and not every school is the same in Jamaica. I would just like to put that disclaimer out there. But there is something to be said about that as well. But just even the overall, just the respect that the teachers have for themselves and how people view teachers in the community.
Yes.
And just, it was
like what happened? Like, why did that go away all of a sudden? Like respect, because I think that having respect for teachers was something I grew up learning. I mean, are you saying kids don't respect teachers so much anymore?
I would say. Also, I don't want to give like a one-sided view, because
I would say
it's so
interesting. Yeah, go ahead. I have a thing to say to that, but go ahead first.
I think what it is that there is a lack of respect on both parts.
That's what I was going to say.
Because I think a lot of times as adults in any culture, I really feel this is global. Or let me not say global, but it's you see it often, is that authority of the adult. That sometimes we're like a child is to be seen and not heard, but they are a collaborator with us in this process of life, you know, like that whole idea, like, you know, sometimes I would feel uncomfortable with just like the setting in the classroom, you know what I mean? Or just like, so I tried to, when I was when I was a classroom teacher, I tried to create a space where the kids felt like this is their classroom. This is our space. We're in a community. We're constantly doing our circles, checking in with each other to know that you're contributing here too. I'm learning from you. When I make a mistake, I would apologize right in front of them and make it known, like, okay, you know, Miss Cajuste made a mistake. I'm sorry. You know, how can I repair this mistake? You know, or you know what I mean, so that I can show them.
Can you give an example of a mistake?
I mean, there are a ton of mistakes.
I mean, your kids are calling you out. Like, that's kind of where I'm at. Like, they call you out on your mistakes,
First
or
of all, girl, kids are listen.
I guess.
Yeah, like if I made a mistake on even the work.
Okay.
If I didn't highlight a word, you know, they're check. Hey, you know, I'm like, oh, you know what? I didn't like. I'm modeling for them, you know. But I'm also being real with myself. I made a mistake. You know what I mean? And I think sometimes adults kind of can have a very like very, I don't know how to describe it, just a very authoritarian demeanor towards children.
Okay.
And then children, I feel like sometimes, remember, they're modeling off of us, what they see around them. They're learning from us. So, you know, they want to test the waters. It's really how you respond.
Yeah, I have some experience with working with like older students, and I just feel like sometimes it's hard to know where you draw the line in that whole authority thing, because you want the student to feel comfortable with you, and you want them to have a space where they can open up and express, you know. And as a child in the younger ages, it's a lot easier for them to kind of like fall into the structure that you've created. But when they get into their adolescence and they're growing up, their number one, like, they challenge authority. That's who they are, right? So as a teacher, or as an authoritative figure in their lives, I think it's a lot harder to, because when I was coming up, all of my teachers were not that close in age to me. You get what I mean? And now, like, I don't know if it's because I'm in this age group, or I don't know if we're just all so similar now. The age groups, we're just all so similar that sometimes you're looking at a teacher and you're like, are you a teacher or a student? You know what I mean? And I think in the way that we approach them, there needs to be a level of, yes, I am here, it's open, we are equal, but I am the leader here. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I think it's hard for, because I do think it's hard for someone like someone who's getting into teaching as early as like 22, 23, 24, and you're teaching high schoolers, or you're teaching 17 and 18-year-olds. You know what I mean? And we're coming in without, like, yeah, we're older, but there's a lot of life experience that we haven't yet had, that I think the teachers that I had when I was coming up had a little bit more experience. So in the way that they held themselves, in the way that they carried themselves, they just demanded a little bit more respect, mm-hmm. right? And also I was brought up in a household where you're taught to respect others and things like that. So all of that plays a part in it. But I do think that there's a level of it, like, what we have to understand is, like, what works for this age group may not work for this age group. You know what I mean? So how do we find a place, like, is education then, because the way it's set up now, it's like, oh, it's a flow, it's progression, it's something that you go, there are steps, you start here, you end here, you know, but is it something that's a little bit more, you know, finding your fit, finding your size, and then figuring it out there? I don't know if my point has gotten, like, mixed up, because I don't know how I ended up here.
Question.
I don't know how I ended up
this
here.
This is a whole question. Was
No.
this not a question?
I don't even know. I was just kind of like speaking to what you were saying, because I think that it's there's no one issue, mm-hmm. you know, like, there's no one issue. I think as far as, like, the respect between student and teacher is no longer there on a certain level, because mm-hmm. at least teenagers, sometimes they just don't really feel like what the person standing in front of them has to say is valuable. And I feel like that's something that changes from, you know, elementary, middle school into being a teenager, into really, because that's when they're, like, you know, figuring themselves out. So if they're coming into it feeling like you have nothing of value to give me, and then I'm coming into it like, I'm the teacher here, I'm the authoritative, you need to, you know what I mean? Like, I've seen videos of teachers and kids, like, going at it, like, on the same level, you know? So just things like that, I feel like it's just, where do you even begin?
Well, look at that. Look at that exchange. Mm-hmm. Think about that. Visualize mm-hmm. that.
Mm-hmm.
What is happening there in the middle of that? That's power dynamics. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's not an energy exchange for learning. Mm-hmm. It's an energy exchange for power, mm-hmm. is what's mm-hmm. happening in that conversation. Mm-hmm. So the problem there is communication and relationship. Mm-hmm. You know, these children, look, I know what me when I was a kid, when an adult or somebody else was, you know, if I was doing something wrong, but they come in my face, mm-hmm. you know, I don't know you. Mm-hmm. Have you built a relationship with me? Mm-hmm. Do you right. know who I am before mm-hmm. you know what I mean? Or, okay, are you somebody who I've repeatedly, this is our interaction with each other. Like, you know what I mean? Like, mm-hmm. are you trying with me, or am I just another student that you've just given up on? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, am I already, because even when I was a kid, I remember not just the teachers, but all the caregivers, babysitters, daycare, mm-hmm. you know, a lot of our children who are really having issues with behavior, it's not in the school, it's usually, you know, the other places that they're in too. Yeah. You know, so it's like, okay, how is everybody responding to that? And what is the root issue? What especially if we start seeing behaviors that are really like red flags, mm-hmm. it's like, okay, what could possibly be the root issue here with this child? Why is this child communicating in this way? And this leads to why there's been a big push, and I hope it continues to be pushed in this narrative mm-hmm. for restorative justice and social emotional learning, because the more that we understand, it's a lot about how we communicate with each other and building mm-hmm. those relationships, because things will go wrong. we'll have arguments and conflicts, but it's how do we process that? How do we talk through that? How do we see that there can be restitution? And that leads, we talk about pipeline to prison, that leads to that. You know what I mean? And the school that I was working at here in Ohio, I was in one of the largest school districts in the state. We had somebody come out, talk to us about the restorative justice piece and model, and we had started to implement it. And it's something that takes it's like baby step into it, just like with everything else. You don't just start from go. It's a sequence of events that has to happen to lay the foundation, and then just like you plant the seed and then you watch it grow. But there was a lot of pushback and this and that, but there were a lot of people who were starting to do some of those practices, one of them being myself, and I was really seeing that, okay, this is working for some of my students. Like, I like the dialogue that's happening. I like how we're processing things. And this is also a time, this is where those other staff in the building come in, because education isn't just about teachers and students. Right. There are other people in the building. You have your instructional assistants, you have your school psychologists, you have your guidance counselors, custodians, every adult that comes into interface with your child, whether it be in the school, whether it be a daycare, coaches, all of those people are imparting knowledge and learning on your child, and have the ability to communicate and model, a healthy communication, healthy dialogue. They have the ability to model that for them, So when we come into those infractions, we really need to think about, okay, what are we modeling for our students? And yes, sometimes we're gonna be upset. We're human too. And I think sometimes that's the problem as well, is that I like what you mentioned, and that's something to really look into, what you mentioned about your teachers when you're coming in being a little bit older and experienced.
I was going to ask you. Yeah.
Because, myself included, when I got started, the school I got started in is a priority school. And a lot of schools that are a priority schools, you get nobody wants to work there. So who are you going to get?
The young ones.
Young, new, fresh teachers, and who are, okay, let's go.
Who are optimistic and know they can change the world one kid at a time.
Listen.
But, and it's like, okay,
and they're going to read a book on urban living, and they're going to be great. Good to go.
I have two things, because I feel like, first of all, I feel like we're just learning from you right now. But I have these two questions that I want to put out to you, and you can answer them in whatever order. I just don't want to forget them. Okay? My first question is just with you talking about community and everything, kind of like going back to that. Do you think as a society we went wrong when we made everything a profession? That's my first question. My second question is, a lot of times education is a profession that people think of like kind of like one track or one pathway, or, different pathways that lead to one thing. So I don't come across a lot of like entrepreneurs in the education space, right? So I think it would be interesting to kind of share how you got here to entrepreneurship, and what are some things that you feel like you can do in your industry through your entrepreneurship, because another theme of this season is like we want people to see that you can do it. You can do something too, like you can contribute something that is your skill, something that you've learned. So those are my two questions.
Okay. The first question, I just want to make sure I have it right, was, did we go wrong by turning everything into a profession?
Like something you pay someone to do?
Paying for services?
Something that you not necessarily pay something to do, but something where it's like, okay, you get all of these degrees, you advance so high, there's like prestige behind it. And so a lot of the onus was on that versus like the quality of the work that you're doing. Okay. Because the thing is, there's no, because what I'm hearing is the changes that need to be made are the things we started out with, right? So where did we go wrong? If we already had these things in place, we just needed things to kind of supplement. What happened? What did we do that has turned this into the monster that it is now? Well, not us.
Well, yeah, because I was about to say, when I'm talking about community too, I'm talking about our Haitian community, our African community, because here in the U.S., the way school started also.
Right.
Kind of.
I mean, I think that because here's the thing, because
the global community.
Because we're in America, and I think a lot of times when people hear community, that sounds very close to socialism, like, you know, having those ideas. And I, as an entrepreneur, am still, you know, hey, I already started this capitalist race. I might as well finish it at this point because, you know, I'm in it to win it.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
But I'm saying be like into, yeah, I mean, that's why, isn't that kind of what, like, how, like, liberals are kind of pretty much, like, they're kind of medium in both things. Like, I believe in moderate. Is it moderate? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not up to date with that, but with the different parties all of a sudden. But,
party.
but yeah, so I think that I lost my point now that we were talking about all these parties. Oh yeah, I think that it's I think it is because everything is about money. That is the root of this problem. It's the money. And I don't think that people who believe in, like, you know, capitalism, they're so threatened by something that sounds opposite of that they're not willing to be like, okay, how can we make this work with us still being a capitalist society? Because that's what we are. That's America. That's what we do. Like, I've come to pretty much accept it. You know what I mean? I don't really think, but yeah. So anyway, so I think that that's the reason why education is where it's at.
Yeah. I mean, there are other countries too who I think it's also a matter of priorities. You know, you can, it's okay to want money. You know what I mean? That's how we eat. You know, that's how we get the resources, a lot of the resources that we need. You know what I mean? But it's, what's our priorities? Is it money over everything, or is it people over humans over everything, health over everything, well-being? You know, what are our priorities? Because I think we see that play out with how this coronavirus situation is happening. The countries that prioritize their people and their health first, even if you looking at their funding for their health industry and what access they give to the citizens in their country, we see there's a difference with what our priorities are. Like, what are our values? Yeah. And those are the things we need to be, like, asking about in all of our industry. We lack intentionality. We lack mindfulness in all of these things. These are big decisions, and at every stage we need to be thinking mindfully. Like, okay, how does this impact? You know, like, what are the consequences? What are the potential positive outcomes from this? You know, like, we're constantly learning and growing. You know, we're all human. There needs to be room for that human error. But when we make an error, see, this is the problem. When we make an error, we're so used to being reprimanded that we don't know how to come back from it.
Yeah, without it having to be like, oh my gosh, you did this and you were wrong. Like, it doesn't have to necessarily be like, oh, you know, people who are for capitalism versus people who are for socialism. Like, no, like, let's find a happy medium and live. Okay, we're literally separated 50-50. Like,
but that brings it back to the original, theme of this conversation of we were all conditioned on this system of reward and punishment.
Yeah.
So that's why I was just...
Which weird. Ties into that restorative justice model, which kind of says no to rewards and punishments.
Yes.
Yeah.
So...
That's what you think the solution is?
We have lots of... You know, the thing, too, is, like, we're talking about in the education industry, like, our experts. We have plenty of experts. There are plenty of resources there of people who have taken the time, who've done the research, who have looked at different models in other places, who have looked and seen the outcomes here, who have been presenting ideas. But it's about us adapting those. We know how to help a child read. Yet we don't do those things. We know that we know what children need, but we do the opposite.
Because okay, you know me and my conspiracies or whatever, but we were talking about this off the mic, but the Mike Epstein thing, right? So even with this, Jeff, sorry. Excuse me. Sorry.
Epstein.
Jeff Epstein. Sorry. The documentary, right? Like just that whole situation, it makes me realize, I mean, where was he getting those girls from? School, right? It made me notice that we're conditioned this way on purpose. We're easily manipulated. One thing that I felt like a lot of those women had in common is that they seemed like they were like hypnotized or something. Like they weren't able to say no. Weirdly, I don't know what that was about, but I just feel like the way that we're conditioned, it's like this for a purpose. It's for us to be for them to easily do whatever it is that they tell us to do. Just even this COVID as an example. Look how easily we listen to what they do. Like literally all of our rights. I can see years from now, it's going to be a big deal that our rights were being violated to the way that they are right now. Mm-hmm. But we are chilling.
Are we?
Yeah.
No, I mean, for the way collectively, the way that it is happening, we are chilling. Like people think, I mean, we're looking at protests, you're hearing people in the news, like looking at protesters like, oh my goodness, I can't believe they're out there protesting. But it's like 20 years from now, it's going to be like, why did you do this to humans? Like, why did you do this to us?
Not just humans, to the planet. Species are dying, people.
Yeah.
We have to be concerned about those things. It's not even just us.
Yeah.
Right, because you take one thing out of the ecosystem. I was listening to this book, Sapiens, and he was breaking down how the way that the ecosystem and the way that the earth works is like change happens over time that gives the rest of the earth and the rest of the animals and the creatures and like the organisms time to adapt to the change. For humans, we change everything so quick, like 10 years ago. Like
right,
look at
everything was
2010
different
versus 2020, and the planet, the organisms, the animals, the creatures that share this space with us have not had time to adapt. Right? So because they can't adapt, they can't keep up, so they can't live. They can't outlive these changes because it's changes. Not habitable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the word.
Yeah. Habitable. It's not, it's,
I mean, but just look at this. I mean, look at the way we're responding to COVID-19. Like everything's different from now. The whole world is going to be different because of this. You know what I mean? So, and it's going to be a rush to be changing this in the next 10 years,
But back to what you said too, like it's also inhabitable for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is.
Like it's like,
and we're realizing slowly.
It's a constant reflection, and even that model that you just said about how we're constantly evolving. Mm-hmm. We want to take that back and apply that to education and development. Mm-hmm. How a child develops, how a human develops. It's not about how fast you get somewhere. Mm-hmm. It's the sequence. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's the order of events. You don't just start walking. You have to start crawling. You got to start moving those bones in your body. Yeah. We're such in a rush. Mm-hmm. Everything has to be, I need this now.
It would be helpful if they came out toddlers, but
But even our learning though, like our learning is rushed. Like
I'm just kidding.
We're missing out. We're missing out because we're not taking the time to fully enjoy the process. We're rushing our children, we're rushing our teachers, we're rushing our parents, we're rushing our community, we're rushing, and we're not actually taking time to be present,
to be human.
You know what I'm saying? We're rushing to die. Like, where's the rush? Where are we going?
Why are you rushing? Yeah.
This is I feel like where this falls into place of like doing our part. Like, yes, all of these issues happen, but like maybe people don't have access to that information. So you being on this podcast and somebody listening to this and then somebody saying, hey, I heard this. That's how we start changing the minds of the collective, by offering them information, and giving them the resources in order to get this information so that they can change their lives and make more informed decisions,
Exactly.
And that's what they don't want. They don't like social media. I think they're realizing we let this shit get too far. This social media.
Exactly. I think, and you know what? And it's crazy because like when they want to get rid of it, they're going to get rid of it. I mean, like, I think I read that TikTok is gone or Trump was like trying to sign an order for that.
Suing Twitter. Was he suing Twitter?
I don't know. Yeah, he was suing Twitter, but like when they want to get rid of social media, they will get rid of social media. This thing is really building communities, because that really is the solution. All of these little strong communities is what, you know, comes out into the forefront and has gone viral and is on the news. And I feel like a part of the reason why that, students are not respecting their educators as much, a part of it is because they're realizing like we're educating ourselves so much on social media that we know like these people of authority don't necessarily know everything, and they kind of really know nothing, actually. And when you read a book, you kind of find that out too. Like they don't really know much. We as humans don't really know much about anything.
Right.
You know? So, I mean,
yeah, there is a lot of like access for us to educate ourselves, just like with the internet and social media, and different people who have educated themselves and now have a platform to share the education that they've received. So,
yep.
Yeah, it's not just in one place.
They don't like it. They like, this backfired.
Because it's strong enough to bring down, big people. Like the social media is strong enough to bring down people we never thought could come down. You know, so.
And that's because of sharing information, just the access. Like this is why, they talk about access to books. This is why our literacy rates are really important, because social media is spreading the knowledge and everything, but we also need to have different resources still. And, our literacy rates were going up, and then they're slightly going down, and even our adult literacy rates, those are some things that we want to be mindful of, because that's another, like, you need to be able to read to know about your health care, about your prescriptions, about your banking. You need to know all of those things, and as great as it is, as a great tool, technology and social media and all of these things are, how much we use it is something we want to think about, because we also know that our attention span is getting shorter and shorter. And we also know, I believe, actually, you're the one who shared it with me, the rates for Alzheimer's is getting higher and higher. Yeah. So our memory is becoming more fragile, which should be a serious red flag.
Because we're being overstimulated.
Again, we're rushing to know everything all at once, and we're not fully actually knowing it thoroughly. Yeah. And as much education as you can get from this and that, there's nothing, I don't know, for me, there's a lot of value for all the problems. That there's also solutions. There are a lot of great quality educators that are constantly enriching the curriculum and the content. There are great parents who are constantly enriching and enhancing their child's access to resources, reading daily with their children, finding ways to cooking with your children is an important skill, because all of these life skills you need to learn.
Life skills, period, with your kids.
And there's also different models of schools, like the Reggio Emilia, Montessori, however you feel about these different types, there are options. And
what schools are those? I've never heard of those schools. I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay, well, Montessori is like, they have a different approach to school. So
they're like charter schools, not necessarily like ran by a district. So it's just like an independent school.
Yeah. So and they follow
like private pay.
Some of them.
Some.
Okay.
So they have like a different model. I haven't worked in a Montessori school, but I know a little bit. And they really do focus on, it's very student centered. So it's like the kids, they come in, they do everything. They're very independent, which I really do like. They make their own they make their own meals. They will set out their table. From some of the things I've seen, there's lots of play. There's lots of different things with manipulatives. There's a lot of different things happening there. Wow. It looks it appears to be a little bit more open to student learning model. And there are also a lot of project service-based learning schools that are really taking on that model of, learning through a project, learning through a community service, because
through experience,
because it's through that experience you tie in literacy, you tie in math, you tie in all of those things, which it's the great thing about humans.
I'm still not using geometry.
Listen, the great thing about humans, as much as they try to bring us down with whatever they try to take away from us, they can't take away our innovation. Yeah. As much as they try to bring us down, there's so many people who are constantly creating having new ideas, new options, who are also who are thinking back. Sometimes you don't need anything new. Yeah. Sometimes it's just, okay, how can we see how this can all work together? How can we take a little bit of this or that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of options. It's about knowing what are your options. And then even in education, we have homeschooling. And that's even a topic that more and more people are talking about now, is homeschooling their children during this time. So there's various options, but it's really about, okay, what is that support? What are those resources look like? You know, what are our intentions with it? Are we wanting students to just learn to pass a test? Or are we wanting them to come out of school feeling like they're empowered, that they can take on anything? Because, okay, I've had this experience of failing. I've had this experience of making a mistake. Yeah. But I was guided to know how to move on.
So will you have a school by the time my children are conceived?
No. She's so annoying. Why wouldn't you open a school? Like,
well, we'll see. We'll you know,
please.
I'm following God's orders. So in whatever direction the universe is moving me to is where I will go. So, all right. But you know what? That takes on to Junie's second part of her question.
Yes, you remember. I know. I'm sorry. This episode is long, but listen, y'all. This is. I mean, are you? I think this is a lot of.
This is good information. Yeah.
Yay.
So, I mean, these are going to be longer because we have a third host. Yeah. So, you know, we got to get all our thoughts out, all our jewels out, you know. So, yeah.
Yep, and you're educating.
So, what's the second question?
Well, so.
What was the second question?
Can you remind me? Actually,
I done forgot.
The second question was, because I know the second question is more so for, like us and our audience, as far as like, when you think of education and entrepreneurship, it's not that easy to figure out a model that works where you can still be an entrepreneur and tie in that educational piece and background. So how did you get here to, you know, entrepreneurship using what you love still, you know, through education? And what are some ways that people can contribute to education or educating our kids or our families, our community on a more individual level, like small business level?
Well, you know, what's so interesting is, you know, part of getting here was realizing that I could, you know. There are actually other educators who have businesses as well. They're either making curriculum. That's why Teachers Pay Teachers is so popular. That's teachers sharing their own resources, their intellectual property with other teachers. But that's just one example of how that education and tying in with that entrepreneurship. But how I got to where I'm at looks a little different. It's I've always been really interested in just child development in general. And part of that is just learning also more about my human body. And I've always been interested in birth, and I had plans to actually learn more about the process and even become a doula. I figured, okay, maybe I'll do it when I'm older and retired. You know, it's like, this is something I can do later on. But it just so happened with COVID and everything, I saw that Mama Glow was offering virtual doula trainings, and I have been a fan of Latham Thomas and her work for years. I actually met her a few years back at Afropunk. I was like fangirling. I was like, oh my gosh, let me take a picture. But no, because I really appreciated her work because she's so focused on the advocacy and reproductive justice and empowering especially Black mothers, when we know that the rates for maternal mortality in this country are so high for Black women because of the inequities and inequalities in our system. And so for me, it made complete sense, because that is part of human development, part of child development, you know, where I'm seeing the start. And to me, I want to be a person who can create a space for someone to have more options and resources to have their best possible start. Imagine an empowered mother, an empowered father, or empowered mothers or empowered fathers, whomever. Imagine them looking at their birth as a beautiful, special moment of bringing life into this world and being intentional about how they're raising their children and doing the best they can of living their human life and making sure that their child has the best resources that they can. That sounds like a beautiful picture.
Yeah.
And I feel like I had that. You know, I've watched my mother, you know, go through things. Even during that prenatal stage, she had a lot of traumas that happened during that time. But she kept evolving, kept growing. It doesn't matter where you are in life. It's okay. Where are we at? Where are we at here? We're here. Here are some opportunities. Here are some resources. That's where I come in. At this time where you're vulnerable because your body is going through so many changes, and we live in a place where you might not live close to your family. You might not have the same support system. I'm here to be a community support system for you. If you have questions, I'm here to help you find the answers, not find them for you, but to help you.
Yeah.
To help you see that you have options. You know, you don't have to give birth at a hospital. There are birth centers. You can give birth at home. Or you can if you want to. Or, okay, what do you think about, you know, nutrition or this or that? I might not have the answers because I don't know everything. But
you know someone who does.
I might know somebody who does. I'm that resource, that extra support.
Yeah.
And I get to help you see, because I'm so passionate about child development. Sometimes, like I've seen my sister when she first had her girls, and even now, she's like, oh, I don't know if they're developing at the right pace. You know, we think everything's supposed to happen so fast. No, you know, it happens in stages and
whenever they feel like it. Everybody's different. They can merge, right?
Let them emerge. And if we do see something that looks like, it's a little bit of an outlier, it looks a little bit out the norm, then we can see those resources, you know? And because of my experience working with children, also my passion about literacy and empowerment, I'm there to also help support with additional early childhood education services for you. Okay. You know, so I can help walk you through that development process for your child if you have questions about like those concerns because of my specific expertise with early childhood education. But ultimately, I'm supporting you. And this is my way to give back to my community. I came back to Ohio for a reason, and I see my reason is to serve the community. And what better way to serve than using the skills that I already have? I already have a passion for children. Maybe not in the setting that I was in before. That's the thing I had to rework on my road here, was that I had become so frustrated with our education system that I was ready to throw it in the trash, the whole thing. I mean, you guys know, I was like,
that's my same feeling with healthcare.
I was like, you know what? I don't know, but you know what? I had to also expand my mind.
You got a whole assisted living.
I mean, this system. No, I'm just saying. No, but like I feel like that's how I felt, because I just felt like, whoa, this system is just so broken. Like, and then when you try to fix it or you try to call people out, like, they get mad at you. Like, you don't get a positive response. You know what I mean? Even if it's like, I'm not, you know, you may not be criticizing or whatever. You're just trying to make something a little bit better, or at least, you know, say, hey, this could be better. And you get, you know, you get pushed down for it.
But you know, that's the thing. When we support, that doesn't mean that we're giving advice or we're trying to fix people.
Right,
or,
right.
Like, we're waiting for them to come to us.
Yeah.
You know, like sometimes I think part of that pushback is feeling like you're telling me what to do instead of helping me find my way. You know, let me ask you and then support me, you know, instead of that. Because sometimes we have a tendency to be like, oh, you're wrong, you you're canceled, you know what I mean? But we don't allow people to find their way. That we all learn differently. I'm someone, I have to take some stumbles and then, you know, all right, I see now. I was that kid and I'm that adult now. You know, that's how I learn. And I know that not everybody learns the same way I do. I'm not here to fix you because you're not broken. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's not my place, but I'm here to support you. I'm here to be a resource for you. And that's what I feel comfortable doing. And I feel like that's what I would want for me as well. So I think it works out. But, you know, something that you said too, I've been reading Brene Brown's The Power of Vulnerability, and she talks about sharing. And it's taken me a while to like share and get out of my box. But I thank our elders and our ancestors for doing so much of this groundwork, because as frustrating as it is to be like, oh my gosh, I want to throw this all away, there's so many people who feel that way too. And so many people before us who felt that way, but they didn't. They kept going forward. They kept moving forward, and they reimagined what it could look like. They didn't let that conditioning limit their mind, you know? Instead, they saw that conditioning for what it was, saw themselves for who they are or were, and they decided to take an action to improve their life. And by improving their life, thus improving the lives of their community. And that to me is beautiful, because we have so many examples of it that even when we're feeling like, oh my gosh, this is no, because there's somebody that's already doing the work. So if you feel like you're alone, oh, this is so frustrating. No, you know what? There's somebody else who's doing it too. Yeah. You need to find your community. Build your own community.
Absolutely. Wow. That's what this season should have been called. Build your own community.
It's never too late, baby. This is our community. We do what we want.
Yes. Yes.
And
wow, that was beautiful.
Amazing? I love how you guys are sharing so much. Look how much you're giving back to our community by sharing this content, sharing this dialogue, because it's activating our brains. It's activating our brains to, I wonder. Now I can ask a question. Now I can research. Now I can follow through, because I know, because I'm processing and living under this conditioning. I know that just because somebody says something and says that they're expert doesn't mean that it's true, or it doesn't mean that their facts are actually factual. But what it does tell me is, I'm curious. So now I'm going to do my own due diligence and learn more about it. I'm empowered to do the work for myself.
And that's the thing. It's like they keep spoon feeding us all the time. I mean, listen, when you talked about that school that has them prepare their own stuff, I'm like, okay, maybe that's why I'm not the greatest adult, because all my meals have been showing up at the table up until college. You know, I was getting my meals, you know, not like placed at the table, but I didn't have to cook my meals. So now it's like adding that to everything else was a little bit of it took a while to get used to that. You know what I mean? So, I mean, even now I'm still like barely want to make my meals. Like I just feel like cooking happens so often. Like I enjoy it, but every day.
Yeah.
Every day?
Girl, I feel you. They got tired of cooking.
Because it's not just
They got tired of cooking.
It's tired too. They want somebody in the community to help them out. They don't want to cook all the time.
My mom, when we got older, she was like, "Good, I've fed you guys for 18 years. Now feed yourself."
It's true.
You know,
yeah,
she's
I
like,
feel
I'm
her
not
though.
cooking.
Grow up.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm not slaving over a stove for nobody no more. So.
But you're right. Like, I think I'd rather just, you know, involve the children in the process. So they just kind of get, so then I'm used to it. I'm not having to readjust. You know what I mean? Yeah. Wow.
And it's fun for, you know, too. It's also just, we need a reframe, you know?
Yeah.
We've been told cooking is boring because we can do all this and
now
that.
I see it more therapeutic.
But, you know, sometimes, like, I don't cook all the time
cheaper.
either, okay? But when I do, I've been really trying to practice being more mindful. So, like, now when I cook, I can either listen to music or nothing at all. And I'm just focused on that. I'm just, like, enjoying. I'm like, all right, you know, here it is. And, you know, I've been theming the meals. I've been, like, making it fun. Like, I'm just, like, trying out new recipes.
Yeah.
It's like that reframe. I'm still working on it, but, you know, it makes it more fun when you look at it.
I really look at it. I started looking at it like self-care. Like, oh, you're taking care of yourself, making you a bomb-ass meal. Yes. Okay. Like, yeah. So, well, Gabby, wow. Thank you for all of these
gifts.
Yeah, Gabby's gifts. I don't even feel like we have to try a different sound effect to end it off.
Oh, we were still in the segment. That's crazy. Yeah. Wow. Different one. So what do you like? Do you like Gift of Gab or Gabby's
I'm afraid it's going to be like a not so good one.
We could do Gift of Gab because that's actually what I have on my IG.
Oh, okay.
It's like, it's Gab of Gaia with the Gift of Gab.
Okay. And that was Gift of Gab. Our newest segment.
I love that.
Okay, so moving on to our next segment, we're going to go ahead and rate the industry, right?
The ashes and the roses.
Yes, we're going to give our ashes and roses, and then we'll rate at the very end. So to start off, what are some of the roses in the education industry?
So many. Play. There's so many teachers and who are working on natural classrooms that I love it. And there's so many parents who are active and involved. Honestly, the main rose for real is also community. I'm gonna bring it back to community. Yeah. It's when I see that parents and children and school staff or parents and children, whomever that combination cocktail looks like, when they're all working together, that is the rose, you know? And there's so many, this is why also public funding is really important. We have to continue to pay attention to funds, especially during this time, because there's so many programs that help supplement things as well. Yeah. But that connection, relationship, having real conversations with children are amazing.
I know. I love talking to them. I love talking to them. The other day, I had like my little cousins. I was hanging out with my little cousins, like, you know, they're like 7, 8, I don't know. And I'm just hanging out with them, you know. And this adult kept on trying to talk to me. And I'm like, I'm busy. They're talking about what they want to do when they grow up. Like, why would you interrupt this conversation?
Because they don't respect them.
Yeah, but I love their innocence. I love how they're so, I mean, it's like they're so, it's like life hasn't got you yet.
Especially, again, in that early childhood.
For some of them.
Childhood window period. Yeah. Though there are a lot of children
who are going through it, going through life.
Woo, you look at those rates for
it's not right.
suspensions and all that in kindergarten. It's alarming. But anyways, but just, you know, that interaction, that human interaction we have of building relationships, getting to know somebody for who they are. And there's something to be said about play. I think kids remind us to be human again, you know, because we can wonder, we can be curious, we can imagine. You know, you said you were, you know, with your nieces. I had my nieces a couple weeks ago. And their imagination, I mean, I have to commend my sister and her husband because their imagination, they just had so, like, my 2-year-old niece was coming up with different voice characters. No lie. She had her own different characters going. And I was like, this is amazing. Just like, you know, sometimes we forget, like, man, that creativity, like, that's why youth are the change makers, is because they have such great imagination. But, okay, I don't know where I was going with that.
You see, I have a problem because, you know, when I hear stuff like that, I always, when I have kids, like, stop me from monetizing my children, please. Because if they have any kind of, if I see any business opportunity.
Lord Jesus.
When you just said that, I was like, yo, you need to find a way to make her make you money.
And that's real, because a lot of people do feel that way. I had a child who wanted to be a YouTube star. And honestly, I think he could be great. He should do it for real, because they are making a lot of money. Yeah. He has so many great things to say that comes out of his mouth. So it'd be like, hey, why not? You know what I mean? But there is something to be said about,
you have to be careful with it. There better be some research on that.
You know, like, look, play is missing. You know, let's bring play back. More of that. Let's bring more of that wonder, that curiosity, that grace for ourselves. And most importantly, grace for the children. We can't expect young children or developing children as they're getting into their, you know, early adolescence, you know, and all of those teenage years. Like, we put a lot of pressure on our youth to do a whole lot.
I think if, for example, him being wanting to do YouTube, The pressure is honestly, it's like, why put the pressure? Because if he doesn't want to put in the work to do it, then he's going to watch it fail. And there you go. That's real life.
Exactly. And you know,
you don't put in the work, it dies, it fails. You don't take care of it. You don't water that seed. It's not going to sprout into anything. Yeah. And that's what I would, if that's what you're going to work hard to invest your own money into whatever project you want to do and watch it fail when you don't want to do the work.
Or watch it flourish when you do it, you know?
Exactly.
So it's a great, that project.
So I'm saying, like, I don't have to pressure you. You shouldn't have to pressure, the kids. That is an opportunity to teach them.
Yeah. So were those all your roses?
Oh, okay. Well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about yours? You got yours?
Yeah. So my roses, just the interactions with them. Like I used to teach like Sabbath school mornings, but then like most recently I had an after school program, and I also used to teach for the Y in Latchkey after school. But like I always have them call me like Miss Junie, and then when you walk in, they're like Miss Junie, and like that was cool. Just them, just their energy, like they're just cool, like they're fun. We laugh, so I like them. I like the kids. I would say the kids are definitely a rose because you can see, like you see the like in all of the ages. You see when they've learned something new. You've seen when they're like, oh, this is cool. You see they try to be like, this is cool, it's all right. But you see the excitement and you see the fear. You see the hesitation. You can see it in their face when a kid is embarrassed. So just like that whole thing, I appreciate being able to have like that whole exchange in them. So it's
kind of like you remembering, I remember me when I was, is it kind of like that? Like you see yourself in them.
Yeah,
kind
it's
of.
just like, like it's okay. You know what I mean? It's just like another process, and I think it's cool. And I love to place myself in the position of someone who they can like use as a resource, I would say that is my biggest rose. Another rose, just about education itself, I think is very empowering. I think it's very empowering, and it's such a massive tool that it can be used to free and to enslave people. Yeah. So I think it's a rose that can turn into ashes. You know what I'm saying? If you burn it, if you light the rose up, but but I think I would say those are my two roses. Yeah.
Okay. For me, my rose, my first rose has to go to shout out to the amazing teachers, because there are really some diamonds in regular schools, like the hiding in a classroom of so many students. It's like I feel like those teachers could have changed the world. And I guess, they really are, because, when they change one person's life, it kind of, so shout out to all the amazing teachers that, took the time, sat down with me and made sure, cause I was struggling in grade school. Okay. The other one is, the other rose is that I have like this new kind of relationship with education now, because I started doing like adult education as my like side hustle for my business.
How we all educators here? Just educators.
We should have really talked about adult education.
Yeah, we completely left that out, and I thought
spectrum right here.
But this is the opportunity to talk about it, because I'm bringing it up. Yeah. Okay, so I'm an adult educator now. So it's very interesting. It's funny because I like little kids. I avoid like middle school teenagers. And now I just have like jumped right into adult education. So, and it's a very interesting, because I feel like they're young adults, and I feel like that's where I can vibe. You know what I mean? Like you're coming into your adulthood, that life is not perfect now. You know that you're not always right at this point, so.
Do you get older adults too? You get older adults?
Yeah, I get older adults as well. And that, because of the field that it's in, because it's in healthcare, like, they tend to just respect what you say. Like everything you say is because it, because I have experience, I have confidence in my field. So if I'm talking to you about it and nothing at all, because the class that I teach is like basic. So if you know nothing at all, then you're just going to listen to what I have to say and respect it. And right now everything is virtual, so they can't even really see my face and see my age.
Could be watching
they just
this.
hear my experience, the experience I have. But so I have a new, you know, I'm learning a little bit more about education because of that. And then the other pro was college changed my life. Black studies courses changed my life. Okay. Which for a lot of people, Netflix's Black Lives Matter segment is changing their lives. But for me, it was college.
AAA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love what I'm seeing with some spaces where there's more of an awareness for like mindfulness. They're doing yoga. I know in my classroom I had affirmations, and I'm seeing just so many like enriching things for children that are available right now. But I wish there was more. So that's definitely an ash. It's like, you know, I think part of that empowerment is to do that self-study. I almost wish there was like a self-study course. Like, all right, then this or something where
you just explore yourself.
Explore yourself.
I bet you there is.
I bet
That
you there's
the
a way to
Ohio
fail
State
that.
University. I'm sure the Ohio State University will charge you a good $50,000 a year for that
Right.
course.
And that's crazy. That's
Create a way for
all
you
of
to
our
fail it. I
own.
would find a way to fail that class. Actually, like how I fail a class about myself.
My own self. Actually, take that back. Let's not make that a class because they just overcomplicate it and find a way to
make us fail on
yeah.
our own self. They
But-
will really make you feel like a failure.
Like damn.
Studying your own self.
right. You know what? Actually, another Ash is thinking that schools and these institutions are the only place for education.
Absolutely.
That's the Ash. Knowing that these are resources, but they're plentiful.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
What about you? What are your ashes?
My ashes would be just the disparity that I've seen just in the Columbus community, just from elementary to middle to high. Like I've been inside a lot of schools, actually. I've been inside a lot of schools, a lot of different schools, and just the disparity of the resources that are available to certain students. Like, of course, this school is going to have a higher math level, a higher reading level when they have more technology, they have more staff, they have more teachers, they have more one-on-one versus, like, this school who they still using chalk and chalkboard or smart boards. And, you know, like, of course there's going to be a disparity in their testing because there's disparity in their education, you know? So that would be an ash for me. Another ash is, I would say that it's like the reward literally comes from you, like what you get out of it. But as far as like the recognition of just education in the lives of children and adolescents, I think it's not held to the regard that it should be held to, because these people are shaping the people that will be running the world. You know, like, why aren't we giving them...
like, they're going to be the ones taking care of us when we're old.
Exactly.
That is the nightmare that I'm having.
So...
Okay. It matters. It matters.
So I think there should be a little bit more emphasis on that. And, you know, just making sure people are underpaid and overworked in this industry on all levels, at the schools, at the nonprofits, on the bus, like everywhere, all of them will tell you the same thing. So, yep, those are my ashes.
Are we underpaid, or is rent just too high? Okay, that's another podcast.
Another ash.
That's another podcast.
Another ash. This is my last ash. I would have to say, the people making the legislation that govern these schools, these urban schools, they haven't even stepped foot in them. Okay, there are a lot of people here in Columbus who are writing these education laws who haven't even stepped foot in these schools. So I would say that an ash would be just the distance between the actual student and the person making the laws that affects that student's daily life.
And that's like every industry. These laws that are being written, it's like, yo, have you ever done this before? Have you ever taken care of a human before? Like, so it's crazy that that's even a possibility.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you said that. And, you know, to the community who's listening to this, this also empowers us to make sure we're doing our due diligence and staying up to date. You know, now with everything going to COVID, a lot of our boards of education are having it virtual, and they're putting it on YouTube. Like, I just watched Columbus City's board meeting where they were talking about virtual and what that's going to look like for parents.
Not everybody's going to be in their business.
You know, so, well, no, but that's good, because that's how you get that information and community participation. So it's,
but that's how you're held accountable.
Exactly. But and that's good though on both ends. Like, but let's also take advantage of those resources and make sure we're tuning in. If this is a district that your taxpayer monies are going to, or, you know, like if you're at a Dublin or whatever, because everybody's posting their things, you know, so we can see what's happening, you know, and a lot of these people are working really, really hard to make this work, but also this working has so many layers to it that we really need to unpack. So it's really important that we're all, even if we don't have our own children, but we're members of the community and we care about the well-being of our children who are in these districts, you know, we want to make sure that we're continuing our education about what's actually happening as we transition as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
What are your ashes?
So my ashes. The first thing I have down is like lies they tell. Yeah, I don't appreciate being lied to growing up. I don't appreciate being like manipulated at all. And that, I mean, that's kind of really why I have been just away from social media, because I just feel like I've been manipulated my whole life. Like this entire thing is just, you know, but my eyes are open now. And so that's a major con for me, is the fact that I know that they're telling lies, like they're teaching lies, and I don't like that. Anyway, moving on. So,
side note, some of those people believe
what they're teaching. I mean, yeah, I know that. I'm not just even in like, I can parallel this to healthcare, bro. Just even me as a nurse, like I realized, oh, whoa, a lot of what I learned is a lie. And I then took that information, passed it on to my patients. You know what I mean? So I don't like that. Meant to condition us, which you guys already touched on. We all already touched on that. And then they're not diverse enough. I don't think classrooms are diverse enough. The first time that I sat in a circle in a classroom was when I was like almost graduated out of college. To like sit and have a conversation. I was in awe. I was like, what? Classes can run like this? Like, that's how I would run my classroom, is everybody is equal and we're having conversations. So I think that there should be more, what you were explaining as far, and public schools should be more diverse, period. It should not just be accessible to students who have money or students who are able to get into this particular charter school or whatever. Like, it should just be diverse altogether and allow students we should be like cultivating them and allowing them to just kind of grow into who themselves and into who they are, instead of like conditioning them to be workers, slaves.
I like that word,
Cultivate, baby.
Yes.
It's my word.
Yes. So those are my ashes, which we usually do it, I think, backwards so that we can end on a positive note. But since
it was heavy. This was a heavy conversation.
Yeah, this was.
But the positive note is we are all aware and we're taking action, and there's so many other people who are taking action. We're not alone in this. Our community is a lot larger than we think.
Yeah.
And there's so much. This is a great opportunity for a lot of big changes.
Man, I think season 2 is gonna change a lot.
And that's why I feel like this is season 2. This is why we feel like, I feel like this is the time. If we're gonna change something, this is a good time. Everything is changing in 2020, so we might as well change everything that sucks.
I love that. I love that. And I thank you guys for doing this. I think this is great. Like the what you're modeling for all of us is how powerful it is to speak your truth and to share what you know, even if you don't think it's right or whatever. You're sharing based off of your own experiences, and that starts that dialogue, which is so important.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Thanks for coming.
Yes, Gabby. Oh my gosh.
I mean, we've had such a good conversation, but you haven't told us what entrepreneur type you are. before we get into our quotes of the day.
I think you guys know.
World changer.
You know it.
Hey,
Come on.
She gonna change the world.
Okay.
Actually, you know what? I actually put that in your bio. I forgot to say that. I said get on her good side because she gonna change the world.
Okay.
You
Zulie
got
Mami, tune in.
Okay, where can they follow you on Instagram, Facebook?
Yes, so you can follow me on Instagram at Gab of Gaia. It's one word on there, GABOFGAIA, Gab of Gaia. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Don't forget to go get her spoken word album.
Yes, thank you. You know what? I'm tripping. Yes. Gab of Gaia, spoken word album called The Spirit Yearns to Move. Really cool harmonic soundscapes that I did with my good friend Lish Grooves. Shout out to Lish Grooves. And I think you guys will like the feel. It's very short, but it's a nice vibe. Island inspired because it was done while I was in Jamaica. You can tune in the Apple Music, Spotify, again, anywhere music is streamed. And be also on the lookout, for more information about Zulie Mami. Zulie Mami is my baby. That is the business that I am giving birth to in this season, where I am providing birth and postpartum support as well as early childhood educational services to the community and for the community by the community.
What does early childhood education services, what are those services that you are providing?
Yes, that includes tutoring. So I will be offering tutoring service for students, but as well as childbirth education classes, just general, anything that you are interested in learning about as far as child development.
Okay.
I got you.
Yes.
Okay, yes. And I mean,
are you raising any children just for future reference?
I'm just raising my inner child. My inner
You're
child.
hilarious. That's funny.
I'm raising mine too.
Yes.
Day by day.
Yeah. Okay, do you have a quote to leave for the good people today?
I do. It's actually my favorite quote of all time. And it's from, at the time she was a child herself, but she is now growing up. Malala Yousafzai. I don't know if I'm saying her last name right.
I don't know either, but I know Malala.
But she has a beautiful quote that says, "The prayers of people are so powerful, it can give you life." Ooh. And I've always loved that quote. It's stuck, it's just held on to me in my soul, and I feel it every day even more, that the prayers of people are powerful. Know that someone out there is praying for you. You are loved. Yeah.
Yes, that's beautiful.
That is beautiful.
That's perfect. Because, that goes in line with that book, The 4 Agreements. And my quote is actually from that book. So I cannot stress it enough. Please read the book. It will change your life. It will make the world a better place, I think, honestly. Okay, so it says, what we call education is nothing but domestication of the human being.
Ooh. And who dropped that quote? Can you give us a name and author?
Yeah, that's Miguel from the 4 Agreements.
Give it again.
It's Don Miguel Ruiz. Okay.
Matter of fact,
4
I don't know
Agreements.
if I heard you the first time.
With
Can
the
you say that
quote,
again?
Can
you
you
need me to
repeat
read
the
it again?
quote?
You need me to say it
Repeat the
again? It's
quote.
fire like that. Okay. All right. So what we call education is nothing but domestication of the human being. So what does that mean?
Preach. Education is nothing but the domestication of the human being.
They've
I
trained us.
think we should just sit on that.
We need a whole podcast on the book.
Yeah. Okay.
We need a whole podcast on the book.
All right.
Okay.
A whole season.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to just
Let
let
it
that sit
sit.
there.
Let it sit. Let it marinate.
Yes.
Marinate.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Junie, of course, you're going to leave us off with the last quote of the day.
Yes, Gabby, thank you so much for coming. My quote.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, my quote today, to leave you guys to kind of marinate with as well, comes from Sydney J. Harris. The whole purpose of education is to turn mirrors into windows, right? So think about that. Think about what are you doing in your life? Who are you educating? And are you turning that mirror into a window for them? All right, guys. See you next week. See you next time. You can listen to us. You can find us on YouTube, and then Apple, Google, and Spotify playlists. We'll see you next time, guys.
Bye, guys. See you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gabby.